Good day, Harry Potter fans. Welcome back to the page. Thank you for always being with us for a new chapter of Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always by Dead Woodpecker. We're at Chapter 31, The Curse.
Chapter 31, The Curse. Chapter text. Harry felt a surge of joy so strong that his heart contracted in his chest and a great lump grew in his throat. They chose. At last. They trust me. For a moment, Harry felt like the 12-year-old on his first visit to the burrow, and he was meeting the Weasley family for the first time. It was a fresh start, but the instant after this bright thought occurred to him, he was pierced by a bitter truth. It would never be the same. Never, never. He had lost his surrogate family on the day he had come back from the future. He hadn't known it then, and even after his exile from the burrow, he had retained hope. But he had said goodbye to the Weasleys the day that had put up the wards. And the fact that they were here now, when it was too damn late, filled him with rage. What the bloody hell? Ron shouted. Sorry, Hermione. What the bloody hell are you lot doing here? My thoughts exactly, Harry thought grimly. He had begun to shake, and it was slightly difficult to breathe. He stared at Mrs. Weasley. She was watching her son with an expression of great relief. Ron, Harry decided, is not nearly angry enough. What do you mean they've chosen? Ginny asked. She was as rigid as Harry, and it was as if he held a stiff board in his arms rather than a girl. She fisted Harry's robes and clutched it tightly. Harry wished that he had not consumed quite so much fire whiskey. He felt that he would have wanted to be less drunk for this. They've chosen, Dumbledore repeated. They came to my office tonight and told me they thought Voldemort had returned, and they wished to help. Harry took several deep breaths. The small part of him, nearly gone now, that warred with the rage and bitterness told him that he ought to take a few more. Chosen, have they? It's a bit late, isn't it? Were they years ago? It's a bit late, don't you think? Harry asked. Too late, too late, too late. Bully for them, though. I don't think I've ever been so surprised in my life, Harry lied. He'd been more surprised when the Weasleys had rejected him. I thought they'd come face to face with Voldemort and still accuse their children of being evil. And there was the crux of it. Harry could understand a little what they thought of him. But they had turned their backs on Ron and Ginny, had forced them to leave the burrow, had forced them to make a choice between them and him. They ought to have known their own damn children better than that. Rage swelled again, and Harry looked around almost desperately. The rational part of him was screaming at him to stop before he said anything he would regret. But no one, not even Dumbledore, made any attempt to stop him. Now, listen, Bill said sharply. Harry knew what he was going to say before he did, and he almost wished that someone would silence him. You couldn't have expected us to know or to trust. And Harry snapped. Every slight, every snide comment, every night that Ginny had cried into her pillow when she thought Harry was asleep, they all came rushing back. That is my point, Harry shouted. He glanced around at those who knew the secret. They had trusted him, and the Weasleys, who should have been his champions, they had let Harry, Ginny, and Ron down badly. Look around. You see these people? They didn't let any fucking article turn them away before they even met me. And you, Harry pointed at Molly and Arthur. How dare they turn on Ginny and Ron? He would curse them if he could. Ought to have trusted your children. Molly whispered something, but Harry didn't hear her. He stared at her, but he didn't see. That damn rune, no doubt inspired by the amount of fire whiskey he had consumed, was all he could see. Pain, pain, pain. If only they had figured it out before we put the wards up. Harry had already said goodbye. This was far too difficult. It was too much. And now he was going to have to tell them about the time travel, and Dumbledore and everyone would expect him to forgive them. And even though he still loved them, he did not think that was at all possible. It's too late. Not to mention what you did to our sister, Charlie said sharply. Just because I know Voldemort's back doesn't mean I haven't forgotten that. Harry had wondered how long it would take them to mention that. He would have bet that they'd be cringing over his terrible power first, though. He felt another surge of anger. So now I'm okay since Voldemort's back? Suddenly they're not so afraid of me anymore? I'm surprised you've forgotten my terrible, fucking power, he seethed. What? Not so worried that I'm going to— What was it? He pretended to think. Lead the family down a dark and dangerous path? Not so afraid that I'm going to bewitch you. No, Bill began. Changing your tune a bit, Harry asked. Try to see it from our perspective, Arthur said. From their perspective. Harry had spent most of his third and all of his fourth year wondering where he had gone wrong, besides touching Ginny. They hadn't trusted him, ever, not even when he had saved Ginny's life, not even when he had taken curse for Percy. He did not know where he had gone wrong, just that he had. But there was no explanation good enough for accusing their son and daughter of being dark. I have tried. I've tried for almost 3 years. But the moment you broke your daughter's heart, do you have any idea how many times she's cried herself to sleep because of you? I stopped trying. Harry, Sirius said. Harry looked at him. His godfather was obviously wondering if he was going to tell them, or if they ought to just send them on their way. But Ginny squeezed his hand, and he realized that the Weasleys should have the truth because they were her family. What the hell is going on? Charlie asked. I thought our concerns were legitimate. If you consider turning your back on your brother and sister a good thing, Harry thought. He glanced down at Ginny and saw an unnatural sheen to her bright brown eyes. You understand nothing, Ginny said. She met Harry's eyes, and Harry found a depth of pain there that made him want to lash out. He took a deep breath, already deciding which memories would hurt them the most. You want to understand? Harry said. Albus. The pensive. Harry gathered his thoughts, sorting through memory after memory of death and destruction, love, and what Harry, Ron, and Ginny were willing to do to save them. He gave them an image of the final battle, the memorial, and the decision to travel back in time to avert the disaster. For them. He also added small memories, his favorites, of being an honorary member of the Weasley clan. Harry, don't do anything you'll regret, Dumbledore warned. Harry looked at the Weasleys, who all appeared confused and wary. He wanted to show them what their distrust had done to their son and daughter, who had sacrificed everything for them. So he pulled those from his head as well. And, in the end, he wanted to show them that while they had thought Harry to be evil, he had once thought they'd be accepting and loving. He knew this would hurt them, and he wanted to hurt them. I can't imagine why I would regret it. Is that a pensive? What dash? Just go. The Weasleys did not say anything, only moved forward and fell into Harry's memories. Harry sagged against Ginny, feeling suddenly weak. The blood still thundered through his veins, but he felt dizzy from the fire whiskey. What did you show them? Ron asked quietly. There was a long silence after Harry told them. Harry, Hermione said gently. Was that wise? I think it's going to hurt them to be shown memories like that. That's why he did it, Ginny said. And frankly, I can't say that I blame him. At least they'll understand that they've been stupid this entire time, Ron said. Still, Hermione looked pensive. Harry glanced at Dumbledore. I'm not going to regret it. Ginny and Ron sacrificed everything for them. Everything. It was an easy choice to make, yes, and none of us would even think about regretting coming back. But their family betrayed them. They were blind. And, damn me if you wish, I'm not going to regret forcing their eyes open. Dumbledore did not say anything. I don't want to stay here, Ron said suddenly. I don't want to be here when they come out. I want to leave and go to Godric's Hollow. Harry thought this was an excellent idea. Neville, Luna, are you going to come with us? Luna shook her head. Sorry, Arthur. It's late, and we got to get back to the school. See you, Harry, Neville said quietly. They shook hands, and Harry could not believe that so little time had passed since they had plotted ways to kill Umbridge, and it had only been a few hours since the 6 Death Eaters had died. Serious? Harry said. He shook his head. Nah, I'm going to stay here. If they still need a few things explained. Harry took one last look at the pensive and apparat into the sitting room in Godric's Hollow. He wanted another drink, but he did not want to have to stay at Grimmauld Place. He did not want to see them. Harry did not know if he would ever really want to see them now that they knew. Ginny appeared beside him, took a deep breath, and started to cry. Harry wrapped his arms around her, laid his head on top of hers, and wondered why his eyes were completely dry. Ron brought Hermione over. The 4 of them stood around a bit awkwardly. Harry had no idea what to say. He wished he had words of comfort to offer Ginny, but if she felt what he did, then there really were no words. Warning, warning, comfort sex ahead. There was only one thing that he really could do. He pulled away slightly, but before he could murmur his intentions in her ear, Hermione spoke up. "Ron," she said quietly, "let's go to bed." "I'm not tired," Ron said immediately. He began pacing around the room. Harry rolled his eyes. "I just can't believe it. I can't believe it." "Let's think about it tomorrow," Hermione said firmly. "Let's go to bed. Together." "I already told you I." But Ron stopped talking when he realized what Hermione was saying. His mouth fell open and his eyes widened. "You mean—" Harry did not stay to listen to the rest of the conversation. He marched out of the sitting room and up the stairs and into the bedroom he shared with Ginny. He shut the door with more force than was strictly necessary and cast a silencing charm and an imperturbable charm. He took one moment to whisper the contraceptive charm, dropped his wand, and swept Ginny up into his arms. "That was exactly what I needed," Ginny said. "Though I may be sore tomorrow. In the good way or the bad way." "In the very good way," Ginny murmured. Harry kissed her softly, stroking the long strands of her beautiful hair. He did not kiss her to draw out her desire again. He was not sure if he was capable of another round at the moment. But he wanted to stall. "Can it wait until tomorrow?" she asked. "Merlin, yes," Harry said. He pulled out of her. "Do you have your wand?" Harry asked. When she shook her head, he sighed and got up to retrieve his own. He cast cleansing charms on the both of them, stripped, and crawled into bed. Ginny did the same, and he curled around her back. He kissed her shoulder, in roughly the same place that he had bitten it, and said, "Love you, bright eyes." "Love you too," Ginny said. "Always and always." Neither of them spoke after that, though Harry was awake for several more hours. He was certain that she was as well. Ginny had helped take the edge off of his anger. It was still there, and so was the pain. But he found that he was able to think clearly. The night had deepened before Harry at last slept. He awoke to the best feeling in the world, Ginny using her mouth on him. One moment he had been dreaming, and the next he was wide awake in all ways. He let her continue until the pressure was too great. He tugged her up, curled around her back again, lifted her leg, and entered her as slowly and gently as possible. This time was just as intense as the night before, but in a completely different way. Instead of growling and shouting, Harry murmured endless words of love in her ear. Instead of being forceful, he went as gently as he could. Only the end result was the same. "You can look now." Ginny yawned and pulled on her robes as Harry headed into the bathroom to wash. He stood under the spray of a shower for longer than was typical, trying to order his thoughts before the inevitable conversation with Ginny, Ron, and Hermione. He got out, dressed quickly, and followed Ginny downstairs to the breakfast table. Ron and Hermione were already there. Ron was tucking into a huge plate full of sausage and eggs, while Hermione nibbled on toast with a dreamy expression on her face. Sirius walked in the moment Harry opened his mouth to talk. "Your family has gone back to the burrow. Don't look like that. They're not angry. They'll be going back to Grimmauld Place tonight. So if you want to see them, they'll be there." "I'm not sure I want to," Ron said darkly. "I think you should," Harry said firmly. Ron and Ginny turned to stare at him. "I thought about this all last night. I think you should talk to them. And I think you should forgive them." "Harry," Ginny said, "I just don't know if I can, or if I even want to." Harry struggled to hide his bitterness. This is all their fault, but he pushed that thought away. It was the right thing to do. He imagined that it would be very difficult for Ron and Ginny to forgive. He had seen the evidence of the wounds caused by their own parents. They ran deep. "I'm going to try too," Harry said, "though I will likely find it more difficult than the two of you. Thinking their own children were evil. What about how they've treated you?" Hermione asked. Harry blew out his breath. "That's impossible to forgive." "Not. And I know this sounds confusing because of what they did, actually. They didn't really do anything wrong. At least not in regards to me. I don't." Harry paused, frustrated. He did not even understand what he was saying. "Listen, your mom and dad, and the closeness we used to have, it's like a dream. Just a dream. It doesn't even exist anymore. It never existed for them. So you're saying that there's nothing to forgive?" Ginny's eyebrows slammed together. "Harry, don't be so damn noble." "I'm not being noble," Harry said sharply. "I'm not. I didn't say that there isn't anything to forgive. I said it was impossible. It's a paradox. I would easily have forgiven your mother and father anything in the other reality. You know that. But those people, they don't exist anymore, for me. For you and Ron, yes. They're your mother and father, and they love you, even if they were dead wrong about the two of you. But they've never been close. They've always been watchful and wary, to me. And that isn't going to change. There's no magic in the world that can bring that back, that can make them remember what used to be and what might have been. So that's over and done. And he added in almost a whisper, I can't forgive them for that. I really, really can't. Harry spent the next 2 weeks avoiding Grimmauld Place when he knew the Weasleys would be there. Instead, he brooded at Godric's Hollow, tirelessly thinking of a way to encourage Voldemort to try to draw Harry out of hiding. Inspiration did not strike until just before Ginny and Ron left to visit with their mother, Charlie, and Percy. Still, it was a dangerous plan. Hey, he said. He scribbled serious address on a spare bit of parchment. Give this to Percy. I'd like to talk to him. Ginny smiled. Good. I thought he might be the first one. Dunno why you haven't before, Ron said. Even if he wasn't the mad bloke. Or woman, Hermione said sharply. It could have been a woman. The mad bloke or the mad woman, Ron said dutifully. It wasn't Percy, damn it. Harry already knew this. Ron had asked Percy this pressing question the first time they met again after the Pensieve. Just bring him by, Harry said. He did not want to tell them his seed of a plan until he had spoken with Percy. They still haven't told anyone, yes? Of course not, Ginny said. Albus was explicit in his instructions. Wait and see. They left moments later, and Harry busied himself in the kitchen, preparing 2 cups of tea. In truth, he should have initiated this meeting sooner. Percy had not fallen in with the rest of the Weasleys, Harry knew. He had been cordial and had defended Harry on several occasions. That had protected Percy from the rage he had felt the night he had shown them his memories. The fact that he did not have very close memories of Percy because of the former estrangement was the secondary reason. There was a small crack, and Percy appeared. The older boy looked surprised and gratified, though he tried to force his face in his stoic lines. Harry eyed him. Would you like a cup of tea? He asked. Air. Thank you, Percy said. He sat at the table and stared at the mug in his hands. Harry was about to open his mouth to speak, but Percy beat him to it. Harry, why weren't there any memories of me? Harry could tell that this question had burned inside him, and he wondered why he had not asked Ron. Perhaps he wanted to hear it from Harry. How did Harry explain this without stating explicitly that he had deliberately punished the Weasleys for the years of doubt and dislike? I know I wasn't dead, Percy said. At least not until the end. Everything makes sense but that. And I mean everything. The closeness between you, Ginny, and Ron, the way you acted sometimes. Mum and Dad thought you were cold and hard, but the 3 of you sort of reminded of my uncles Gideon and Fabian. And the look in your eyes when he sent you away from the shed. The advanced skills, everything is so clear that I wonder why I never saw it before. Except, in all the memories you showed us, I was never once there, only my body at the end. True, Harry said. Listen, part of that was because, well, when Voldemort came back for the first time, the Ministry didn't believe it. Not at all. They claimed that I was a raving lunatic who just wanted attention. Albus was taken off the Wisengamot because he defended me. Is that why you've been in hiding? Percy asked shrewdly. Why you didn't try to explain what had happened with Cedric? Yes, Harry confirmed. And that's why all our allies are in deep hiding. We've been working behind the scenes, but that doesn't matter at the moment. Your mum and dad, they joined the Order of the Phoenix immediately. And you sided with the Ministry. Percy looked aghast. But why? You placed your loyalties where you thought you should, Harry said. So, for however many years, I didn't believe that you know who was back. No, Harry said. Voldemort. It's a long story, and part of the reason why I asked you to come only remained hidden for about a year. After that, I think you had a hard time knowing that you turned on your family. You came back, though, right before the final battle. Percy eyed him. Is that why you and Ron and Ginny were so nice? You didn't want me to side with the Ministry? No, Harry said honestly. We wanted you to know that if you sided with the Ministry, you could always come back. Ron and Ginny reckoned that if you knew that we appreciated you, you'd have an easier time of it. And don't feel too guilty. We found out, after the battle in which you died, that you've been using your connections at the ministry to help muggle-born witches and wizards to flee the country. Percy stared at him for long moments, ignoring his tea. Would you let me help if I ask? Percy, Harry said. That's actually why I wanted to talk to you. I have an idea, but there's a risk, and if you don't feel comfortable, I'll do it, Percy said immediately. Harry grinned. You may want to wait until I tell you. You see, we need bait for a trap. An hour later, Harry had outlined every risk that he could think of, including some that were extremely unlikely, and Percy was just as firm about his desire to help. Harry was reluctant. The fact that Percy would be used as bait was a minor thing, really, but Percy's allegiance would be public. It was possible that Voldemort could go after him. But Percy was adamant, and Harry had to admit that they needed him. Let's go tell Ron and Ginny, Harry said. And we'll have to ask Creature. Percy, are you certain? Harry asked for the 17th time. As certain as I was 2 minutes ago, Percy said immediately. Harry sighed. A thought flitted across his brain, and Harry realized that he felt exactly the opposite about Percy than he did the other Weasleys. Percy had kept himself at a distance last time, separated from the rest of his family by the virtue of having completely different personalities and interests. But now, it was the other way around. Percy was still Percy, pompous, ambitious, and a little hard to take in large doses. But his loyalty to Harry and his siblings had never truly wavered. All right, Harry said. I won't ask again. They apparat to Grimmauld Place at the same moment. Harry felt a nervous swooping in his stomach. This was the first time he had placed himself in the same place as the other Weasleys. Fortunately, they were apparently in the sitting room. The basement kitchen was deserted. Ginny, Ron, Sirius, Harry called loudly, and what sounded like a herd of elephants tromped down the stairs. He grimaced and then wiped all the expression off his face with the help of his rudimentary occlumency skills. Sirius bounded into the kitchen first, followed by Molly, Arthur, Bill, and Charlie. Harry let his eyes slide right past them. We figured out how we're going to lure Voldemort, Harry told them. Sirius, Creature is going to go to Narcissa Malfoy and tell her that I've got you under the Imperius curse. What? Sirius said blankly. Why not just say I'm supporting you? It's an added layer of protection, Harry said patiently. He saw the older Weasleys sit down at the table out of the corner of his eye. None of them were looking at him, which was just fine with Harry. However, it would be unwise to put Sirius in the compromising position of my ally. Not only for right now, but for later, we've got a plan for the worst for the Ministry, and Sirius needs leverage. Which means, we're using Percy as bait. Ron gaped at him. Did you think of this all by yourself? Harry grimaced at him. You know I don't like it, but it needs to happen. We'll take extra precautions, of course, and once Voldemort has come back into the open, Percy has agreed to move in here. Why not use the Fidelius charm on the burrow? Bill asked. Harry clenched his jaw and didn't answer. Because you're going to pretend to think the same as you did when Ron and Ginny left, Percy said promptly. You're going to continue to stay out of the fight, and you're going to be disapproving, even when everyone finds out you know who is back. Ginny gave Harry a small smile. No way, Charlie said forcefully. No way in hell will I. You'll do it, Harry said firmly. Sirius, we're going to have to ask Creature if he'll do this. And when he agrees, make absolutely certain that he knows exactly what to say. And tell him that if he is in any danger at all, he is to leave immediately. We need to act fast. Creature needs to have planted the information within the month. And I'll be moving out of the burrow and into my own flat, Percy said. Why Percy? Molly whispered. And why can't we? Why aren't we going to be on your side? It's all about doing what Voldemort doesn't expect, Mum, Ron said when Harry made no indication that he was going to answer her. Percy is the most likely candidate to be on friendly terms with us. And if your support remains hidden, you can do things that can't be traced back to you. And we need people like you at the Ministry, Dad. And we'll need Bill to stay at Gringotts for now. Why Gringotts? Bill asked. What the goblins got to do with this? We're going to have to, Ginny began, but she stopped and immediately frowned. She withdrew a small silver object from the inner pocket of her robes. No, Luna's voice. Don't. It has to be done, Umbridge's voice. It sounded faint and distant, and Ginny added a charm to make it louder. Give me that wand. Now, Mr. Longbottom, I believe you have something to tell me? Oh yes, I know you've thwarted me all year, both of you. But you will tell me where Harry Potter is. Right now. No, Neville said. We're going to Hogwarts right now, Harry said. Let's go, Ginny. Ron. But all three of them turned on the spot, and after the unpleasant sensation of being pulled through a small tube, Harry was in the tidy upper room of the Hog's Head Inn. Ariana, we got to get in. Crucio, Umbridge shouted. Luna screamed a terrible, high-pitched sound that nearly stopped Harry's heart. All three raced as fast as they could up the passageway and into the room of requirement. We need a door, Harry yelled, one that leads into Umbridge's office. Should we disillusion ourselves? Ron asked. No need, Harry said grimly. Dead people don't talk. The door appeared when they were halfway across the room, and Harry reached it at a dead run and threw it open. The scene that met his eyes filled him with anger so intense that Harry had raised his wand, intending to use the killing curse for the first time in his life. Luna was bound tightly to a chair and was screaming from the pain the Cruciatus curse caused. Neville was beside her, also bound, tears of impotent rage streaming down his face. And Umbridge cast the curse, a sickening look of glee on her face. But the cool, logical part of his brain wanted answers to several questions he had. Just a few minutes, Harry promised himself. So when he shouted, the word that left his lips was stupefy. Umbridge dropped like a stone, and Luna stopped screaming. Ginny immediately unbound her and Neville. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Luna sobbed, panting. Neville shook with fury. He stood up with deliberate motion and raised his wand. There was a hard, determined look on his face, and Harry knew that he was about to kill the stunned woman. Not yet, Harry said. Incarcerous. Black ropes twined around her so tightly that they cut her skin, causing her to bleed in spots. Innervate, Ron said. Umbridge's beady little eyes blinked open. Harry bent over her and saw with grim satisfaction that her eyes widened with fear. She made little whimpering noises. She tried to move, but gasped from the pain. This did not bother Harry in the slightest. You cunt, Harry said. You foul, evil cunt. You're dead. You're already dead. You just haven't stopped breathing yet. How do you like having Harry tie you up with magic? Ron asked. I've got to admit, I'm really enjoying the sight. Looks painful. Harry ignored this, though Umbridge looked even more terrified. Don't worry, Harry said. We already hated you before you accused me of buggering Ron. We're not going to kill you because of that. We're going to kill you because you tortured Luna and you tortured Neville by forcing him to watch. But first, you're going to answer a few questions. You can't. A lot of people say that to me, Harry interrupted. You're not the only one who is going to die surprised. Now, tell me, how did you fool the centaurs? How did you perform a memory charm on them? What? Umbridge said blankly. Harry tightened the ropes until they squealed. I don't. Before you wrote the article that started the process that turned the world against me, Harry said very slowly, you had to have done research. How did you trick Forenza? I can't imagine that you walked into that forest and called him a half-breed. You'd be dead already. I didn't write the article, Umbridge said. Harry twitched his wand in her face, and she wet herself. The stench of urine and fear filled his nostrils. You have no reason to lie, Harry said, sitting back on his heels. He frowned at her. He did not like the fact that his instincts told him that she was telling the truth. She had no reason to lie. She should be boasting of it right now, as she had done when she had confessed that it had been she who had set the Dementors after Harry. The world rocked a little. I didn't. Umbridge squealed. Who wrote it, then? Harry shouted in her face. Tell me, damn you. I don't know. I don't. Ron swore loudly and fluently. Ginny made a sound like an angry cat. I just checked, Harry. I used the Veritas charm. I can't believe it, but she's telling the truth. She didn't write that damned article. Harry's mouth twisted with rage as he stared down at the toad-like woman who was now trying desperately to get out of her bonds, despite the pain. Harry stood up, pointed his wand, but before he could kill her, there was a bang and a flash of light. It hit Umbridge in the stomach and her eyes bugged out. Her skin immediately began to turn gray, and her breath came out in pants and gasps, as if her lungs were no longer working properly. It marbled and hardened, and Harry realized that she was being turned to stone before his eyes. It took quite a long time for the transfiguration to be complete, but 5 minutes later, the ugliest statue Harry had ever seen lay on the floor before him. But only for a moment. "Reducto," said Luna, and Umbridge burst apart. The only sign that she had been there at all was a fine dust that now coated the room. Harry turned to look at her. She was pale and trembling, but her blue eyes were rather fierce and not at all what he was used to seeing. Harry had known that Neville had hardened, but Harry had not noticed it in Luna. He felt pride and grief all at the same time. "What a remarkable spell, Luna," Ginny said. Her voice shook slightly. "Thank you, Guinevere," Luna said. "My father's friend taught me after my second year." They stood there in silence for long minutes. Ginny put her arm around Luna, who accepted the comfort gratefully. Ron put his hand on Neville's shoulder. Harry stared down at a piece of stone the size of his thumbnail. It was the biggest part of Umbridge left. She didn't write the article. Damn it. Snape is going to be furious. "I suppose we're going to have to tell Albus about this," Harry said. "Did anyone know that you came here tonight?" Neville and Luna shook their heads. "She didn't give us any time to tell anyone. And she didn't tell Fudge. We know that, because when she told us she was going to use the Cruciatus Curse, she said that what Fudge didn't know wouldn't hurt him," Neville explained. "That makes things easier," Ginny said. "Yeah," Ron said. "So it does not having a body to get rid of."
Thank you for always being with us, Harry Potter fans. We've got a new chapter for Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always by Dead Woodpecker. We are at Chapter 32, Beware.
Chapter 32, Beware. Chapter text. Harry's heart hammered inside his chest, and the palms of his hands felt uncommonly sweaty. He was alone in the kitchen at Grimmauld Place, and everything was, so far, going according to plan. Harry knew that this could change at any moment. Merlin knew that almost everything had gone wrong. But Snape had provided information that Voldemort was ready to attempt to lure Harry into the Department of Mysteries that had worked. But what if the Blood Wards don't protect Percy? We should have made them as strong as they were at the Burrow. Harry could not help these thoughts, even though he knew that the wards Dumbledore had created were exactly what they needed. No one who was not a family member of Percy's, Harry, could not even enter, could penetrate the wards without extreme pain. And whatever else the Weasleys might be, they were not supporters of Voldemort. Yet Harry was frustrated and worried. Many different things clamored for his attention. He was actually least worried about the duel with Voldemort. Even if Harry was struck by the killing curse, that was hardly the worst that could happen. Indeed, every day Harry realized more and more the truth. Dumbledore had always been right. There were far worse things than death, and Harry was lucky enough to stumble across loads of them. Harry," Mr. Weasley's voice. Harry gritted his teeth. With an effort, he turned his head and stared at a point on the wall several inches to the left of Mr. Weasley's head. Harry thought that he had progressed rather well from just under a month ago when he had steadfastly refused to be in the same room as them, or even the same house. He could not, however, make eye contact. It hurt too much. That first moment, it was hard to remember that this Mr. Weasley was not his Mr. Weasley, the one who had been like a father to him. "Yes," Harry said flatly. "Do you know where Ron and Ginny are?" he asked. "I expect they're at Godric's Hollow," Harry replied. He turned away. He had given all of the Weasleys the secret 2 days before, though he had had to fight his own bitterness. "Is it all right if I—" "It isn't my house," Harry said. He wished Mr. Weasley would just leave. He didn't want to see them. He didn't want to have a talk to them. "Go if you want." "Thank you," the older man said. But he made no move to join his children, and Harry felt a sick sense of dread. "Don't talk about it, don't mention it, and don't ask me about it. Harry, Molly and we want you to know that we should have listened. We're really sorry." This was the moment that he had been dreading since he sent the Weasleys into the Pensieve. He absolutely did not want to hear their apologies. This urge was so strong that Harry had to use all his might to not silence Mr. Weasley with his wand. "There isn't anything to forgive," Harry finally forced out. And yet he had a coiled mass of grief, pain, and anger in his belly with the Weasley name on it. Mr. Weasley seemed to know this. "I may have been blind, but I can see that." "There's nothing to forgive," Harry insisted. That was the problem. Other than the way they had treated Ginny and Ron, they hadn't done anything wrong. But at the same time, they had ruined everything. There was no chance at closure, no way to resolve these issues. There could be no way of going back to the way things were, because they had never been. Harry was immensely relieved when Mr. Weasley left. He did not need another item on his plate. His invisibility cloak was still missing. Umbridge hadn't written that damn article, and Snape had been forced to carry around a portkey just in case Voldemort found out the truth and tried to kill him. They couldn't possibly make absolute certain that it had, in fact, been the Longbottoms who had erased Dumbledore's and Snape's memories and inadvertently killed Rookwood. There were too many damn complications. And, on top of all of that, Percy was maintaining his silence. Harry looked sourly at his cup of tea. He found himself wishing, not for the first time, that Voldemort was not a damn Legilimens. Creature did not know a clemency. Therefore, they had to make sure that he told the truth as much as possible just in case. So Harry had placed Sirius under the Imperius curse on several different occasions. Ron had done it too, though that had been primarily just for fun. They had staged a loud discussion about how glad they were that Percy was actually on their side, and also that they had not had any contact with him since the beginning. Harry did not like the necessity of using someone he cared for as bait, and he had a horrible feeling that things would go very wrong. The next 2 days were spent anxiously pacing, pulling at hair, and being soothed by Ginny. Harry was prepared to drop everything at any moment and race off to the Ministry, this time with Ginny, Ron, Hermione, and Moody all in tow. Harry repressed the urge to send Percy a Patronus practically every 10 minutes. But the Death Eaters were watching, Harry knew, and no one wanted them to see how the Order of the Phoenix communicated. It only made things worse when Percy stopped coming to work. This had been entirely expected. The Death Eaters who worked for the Ministry were quick to cast suspicion on him. Percy had had to hole himself up in his small, order-funded home. But what if? Harry wandered around Grimmauld Place, pacing and wishing that Voldemort would get on with it. It finally happened at 7 o'clock in the evening while Harry was having a shower. His scar blazed with pain, and he fell over, clutching his head. He could see Percy's face, hear Percy's screams. He left the bathroom at a dead run, threw on underpants and a robe. "It's time," he bellowed. Doors flew open. Remus, back from Bulgaria, came out of one of the rooms, followed by Tonks, who was remarkably disheveled. Harry probably would have laughed, but this was not the moment to tease Remus. "You're certain we can't go with you?" Remus asked. "Should I head to the Ministry?" Tonks asked at the same moment. "Yes, I'm sure." And, "No, don't go to the Ministry. Alert Kingsley and tell him to bring Muffle the wards. Merlin knows we don't want Scrimgeour showing up when we don't want him to," Harry said. "But what about?" "Ron's father is doing that," Harry said grimly. "It's a good thing. It'll look less so, I don't know." Sent the message to Dumbledore. Ron said, "He'll send Fawkes to Percy's house. Get him out of there." "Hermione, are you sure you want to come?" "Yes, Ronald," Hermione said testily. "No need to bite my head off, woman," Ron said. "Are we forgetting anything?" Harry asked. "Wards, Percy, Dumbledore, Ron, have you told your father?" "Yes," Ron said. "Just the Patronus. I didn't make it talk." "Right," Ginny said. "So now we wait." Kingsley's Lynx, Dumbledore's Phoenix, and Mr. Weasley's Weasel all arrived at almost exactly the same moment. Harry took several deep breaths, disillusioned himself, and gripped Ginny's hand while she did the same. "Are you leaving? Is this the moment?" Mrs. Weasley sounded very anxious. "Ginny, are you sure?" "I'm going, Mum," Ginny said sharply. Harry took this to mean that Mrs. Weasley had attempted to talk her out of going. Apparently, she did not yet fully and truly comprehend the fact that her daughter was not actually 14 years old. Harry ignored the fact that he, too, was guilty of wanting to keep her out of danger as much as possible. Ginny turned on the spot and took Harry with her to the atrium. It was silent and almost completely deserted, except for two weary-looking witches who were scrambling in the hearths. He gazed down the long walk toward the lifts and saw Arthur Weasley standing in one just before the doors closed. Good, Harry thought. They set off swiftly toward the lifts and rode down in tense silence. Harry could hear Hermione breathing heavily through her nose. This would be her first real taste of combat outside of a controlled environment. The lift doors opened on level 9. Harry gave Ginny's hand a reassuring squeeze. Only 5 seconds passed before Harry realized that another set of heavy, clanging footsteps joined them. Harry's entire body tensed up, and he jerked to a halt. "It's me, Potter," Moody said in a gruff whisper. "Prove it," Harry said. He pointed his wand in the direction of the voice. "Hedwig died that night, too," Moody said cagily, referring to his own death. "What are you doing here?" "Came to fight," Moody said. Harry paused to think about this, and then shrugged. "All right, get Bellatrix Lestrange. Don't kill her, but take her down and make sure she won't get up again for a while." "I'm here too," Dumbledore murmured. "I like the odds of this better. 6 on 12, was it?" Ron snorted. "More like about 500 to 12. Albus, with you here." Hermione wanted to get some experience. "I'm quite all right with Albus being here, Ron," Hermione said quickly. Ron laughed, and even Harry grinned. It felt a lot merrier to have Dumbledore here. Harry realized that they had never really fought beside each other before. Dumbledore was either rescuing him from certain death and Harry was unable to move, or Dumbledore was rescuing him from certain death and Harry was unable to move. "I think this might actually be fun," Ginny mused. They stopped in front of the door that led to the Department of Mysteries. All 6 of them paused for a moment. Harry was certain that the others were thinking of the ramifications of what they did this night. Harry, who had agonized over his encounter with Voldemort last year, was confident that they were doing the right thing, and relieved that this day was finally here. Harry grasped the knob and pushed the door open. As soon as they entered the room with spinning doors, Harry immediately lifted the charm that made him invisible. The invisibility cloak would be so much more convenient, he thought sourly. The room stopped spinning, and Ginny marched forward and opened the first door she came to with her wand. It was not the Hall of Prophecy, but was the room in which the unspeakables researched time. Harry wondered what they would make of him, Ginny, and Ron using the Tears of Merlin. Harry frowned when the door that appeared next was the one that was always kept locked, where the unspeakables studied the most terrible force in the universe, love. Something tickled at his brain, but before it could form a real thought, the doors changed again, and Ginny opened it to reveal the Hall of Prophecy. They formed a loose square with Harry at the head and Ron in the rear. Ginny and Hermione walked side by side. For any Death Eaters observing them, the 4 were completely alone. Harry could not even tell where Dumbledore and Moody were. "Percy," Harry called. He tried to sound panicked, but he mostly sounded like he was trying to impersonate a girl. He hoped the Death Eaters did not notice this. "Percy, where are you?" They quickly made their way to where Harry's prophecy was. Harry thought he might have heard Dumbledore and Moody break away from them, but he could not be sure it was not the beating of his own heart. "This has my name on it," Harry said softly. Do you think this is the prophecy?" He reached out and grabbed it. Quiet footsteps approached, and Harry, Ginny, Ron, and Hermione banded together, preparing to battle. As soon as Harry could see the mass in the dim light, he shouted now. What followed next was, and this was the only word for it, a rout. The Death Eaters had not expected to be blasted, cut, bludgeoned, or turned inside out. "Remember not to kill them, Ron," Harry had to remind him several times. The Death Eaters also did not expect to have 2 full-grown wizards, one of the Dumbledore, countering their ambush. "Well," Harry said, staring down at Bellatrix Lestrange. Her eyes were glassy, and she bled from her ears, but she was still alive. Only one Death Eater had died, and that had been the case of Friendly Fire. That was much easier than I expected it to be. Ron kicked Bellatrix in the stomach. He apparently could not help himself. "Are any of them even well enough to be Imperiused?" Ginny asked doubtfully. "Enervate," Dumbledore said, and not open his eyes. "Imperio," not raised his right hand and pressed his finger to his dark mark, and Harry thought he might have been better off with grievous injuries. He did not think the elderly man would withstand Azkaban. He couldn't muster up much pity. "I suppose it's time," Harry said. And just to be certain that he would not be leaving his wife and friends with sneaking snakes, Harry tied them together. They were bound so tightly together that even if one of them were only pretending, that Death Eater would not be able to do anything. "Stay here until you get the warning." Ginny gave him her blazing look, and he pressed a kiss against her lips. "I'll see you in a few minutes," Harry promised. "I know," she said. He walked away. Harry had known beyond a shadow of a doubt that Voldemort would not be able to stop himself from checking on the progress of his servants, especially as one of them had pressed the dark mark. The lift doors opened, and the atrium was even darker and more silent than it had been when they had first arrived. He breathed a sigh of relief that Ginny had not insisted that she come with him. He did not want her anywhere near Voldemort. The prophecy glowed a little in the gloom, and Harry's footsteps echoed loudly. As he walked, he cast a notice-me-not charm all around the edges of where they would duel. Voldemort would be fooled into thinking they were alone. Mr. Weasley had already cast the compulsion charm that would encourage the Aurors and the Ministry workers not to step in. He gazed at the statue of the wizard, the witch, the centaur, and the house elf. He grinned at the smallest figure, thinking of Dobby. It would be fitting to use this one. Harry tucked the prophecy into his robes and focused once more on his obfuscamancy. He had been forced to adjust it a bit. He hid the real memories he had of both times that he had come to the Ministry, planting a false one for Voldemort to find, made stronger by the fact that he wove the two memories together. He hoped it would survive the onslaught, and if Voldemort chose to possess him again. Harry waited, as silent and still as the statue next to him. A flicker of motion caught his eye, and he saw Dumbledore standing in the shadows outside the protective circle of the charms. A moment later, and the shadows seemed to coalesce, and Voldemort appeared without making a sound. It was staged perfectly. Almost the instant Voldemort made his entrance, Cornelius Fudge did as well, followed by Rufus Scrimgeour. As soon as he saw them, Harry pointed his wand and animated the statue of the house elf, and he focused all his attention on the forthcoming duel. Voldemort strode purposefully down the long atrium until he noticed that he was being followed. The serpent-faced man bent over the elf and looked around. He did not notice that the atrium was slowly filling with people who were under the compulsion to remain and bear witness. He leaned over the elf, and moment now, he would begin to move away from it, certain that it was not an obscure message from one of his followers. "Flagranti!" Harry shouted. The little elf glowed red-hot. "Confringo!" The statue exploded with the force of a small bomb, and Voldemort was sent flying backward. Harry did not give him a chance to catch himself, but shouted the blasting curse again, sending Voldemort flying backward. He screamed a high-pitched cry of fury that gave Harry chills. "It was stupid of you to come here tonight, Tom Riddle." Harry stepped out of the shadows and let the disillusionment charm slide off him. "Potter," Voldemort hissed. He had red blisters all over his face and hands from where the shards of the burning statue had impaled him. Harry felt a flash of pain from his scar. Voldemort had seen the prophecy destroyed, not knowing that Harry had tricked him. His face twisted in fury. He raised his wand almost too quickly for Harry to see. He ducked the killing curse and dived out of the way of the exploding centaur. He came out of it in one smooth movement. Harry screamed, "Sectum Sempra," before he had even rolled to his feet once more. Harry allowed himself a moment of shock and awe when Voldemort could not spin away from the jet of light fast enough, and two fingers on his left hand spun into the air and splat on the ground. Those were cursed wounds. Nothing could bring them back. But Voldemort recovered amazingly quickly, and Harry had to duck another flash of green light. He danced around the curses, whirling this way and that in a complicated pattern that Moody had taught him months ago. "You're the one who shouldn't have come, Potter," Voldemort hissed. "You're the one the Ministry is hunting down. They do not even have any inkling that I, Lord Voldemort, have returned again." "That doesn't matter," Harry said shortly. They were circling each other now, Harry was only dimly aware of the watching crowd. He could barely see them, and if they made sounds, he did not hear it at all. Didn't you want to know the fullness of the prophecy? Voldemort asked. That was your destiny involved as well. Oh, Harry said. He withdrew the glass orb that glowed in the dim light. You mean this prophecy? He did not give Voldemort time to react, but tossed it up high into the air and used the curse he had used on the statue to blast it into smithereens. There was a haunted, howling sound, and only a fine dust rained on the floor. I don't need to know what it says, Tom. I've known for a while that I'm going to defeat you. Voldemort screamed with laughter and fury, though Harry could tell that he was unnerved. You think you, a child, can defeat me? Harry answered him by shouting Incendio, and Voldemort was wreathed in flames. It only lasted for a second, and Harry dodged another killing curse. Voldemort was breathing as heavily as Harry. He pointed his wand. A stream of gray light arced out of it, and Harry threw up a shield charm as fast as he could, but he was hit in the shoulder. He immediately felt exhaustion so intense that it was all he could do to stay standing. He partially broke the curse, but was already sweating and trembling from the effort to remain upright. Harry felt a dim surge of anger. Voldemort had deliberately weakened him. If that isn't cheating, he decided in an instant that this was all he needed from Voldemort. He flicked his wand, and let the Notice Me Not charm that kept Voldemort from seeing the crowd that had amassed in the atrium fall. The red eyes widened, and he hissed in anger. Then he turned on the spot, his cloak billowing out from him like a piece of darkness, and vanished. Harry sagged to the floor, more exhausted than he had been in a very long time, and possibly not at all in this body. It took minutes for him to catch his breath. The atrium was totally and completely silent, as though someone had cast a charm. The fact that Harry Potter had just dueled Voldemort appeared to have made a great number of people speechless. Harry looked at Dumbledore out of the corner of his eye. He got the impression that the older wizard wanted to start cheering. Several long moments passed, and still no one moved. Harry shifted his weight from one foot to the other, starting to feel a little nervous. Were they going to try to arrest him? If they tried, he was going to have to put his foot down. Voldemort is back. Harry stated the obvious. Fudge gaped, sputtered, and opened and closed his mouth like a fish. Mr. Weasley stood right behind him. Harry noticed. He was grimly satisfied that the man's compulsion spell had worked well enough that the Aurors had not attempted to curse Voldemort. Amos Diggory and Cedric were familiar faces in the crowd. He wondered if Mr. Weasley had had anything to do with that. Harry shouldn't be surprised that Cedric now worked for the Ministry. Bright boys and girls who were skilled with magic often did. It appears, Dumbledore said slowly, that we might owe Mr. Potter a rather large apology. D.D.D. Dumbledore. Fudge whispered. That was you-know-who. Harry turned away and rolled his eyes. Yeah, he said. Voldemort's been back since June 24th. You know, the night you lot decided to arrest me. Dumbledore gave him a very, very sly wink. It went unnoticed by any of the others. I take it that you used the Imperius curse on young Mr. Diggory to protect him? But what about Moody, with his impeccable timing, chose that moment to shove through the crowd. A mad Death Eater was impersonating me, he growled, amidst the cries of shock and gasps. But the crowd quickly fell silent, wanting to know the truth. Don't know which one, never saw him. But the wizard who died in a maze was the Death Eater, not me. But how do we know? A young Auror began. You know of any ways to impersonate a dead man? Moody growled. Honestly, DeWitt, you ought to have studied Miss Abernathy a little less in concealment and disguise a little more. It's DeWitt said, Odd. That's Mad-Eye Moody. It is, Rufus Scrimgeour said, more to himself than to anyone else. He, however, had not merely taken Moody's word for it. He'd cast a spell that Harry did not know, but if it detected whether or not someone was using magical means of disguise, he probably ought to, and Moody's body had briefly flared blue. Polyjuice won't work like that. Not with a dead man. Thought it was a bit funny that he got himself killed by a blast-ended scrut. But how? How did you get your eye back? I didn't, Moody said gruffly. I made a different one. Scrimgeour nodded, though he was still frowning. Moody's eye spun. Several employees were slipping away. Harry had a good idea that they were leaving to apparate to Voldemort. He was glad that Moody was marking them. Perhaps they would have new names to add to the list they had created of Death Eaters who had infiltrated the Ministry. I assumed that you were captive somewhere. Scrimgeour pushed. I was, Moody said. I was held under the Imperius curse and kept in my own trunk. I was moved the night before the final task. Thank Merlin, or I would have starved to death, and once the Death Eater died, I was able to escape. Harry listened as Moody lied fluently. An odd thought struck him. He remembered years and years ago before the destruction and Voldemort's defeat. Aberforth had said that Dumbledore kept his secrets close to him. Harry was doing the same. He was glad that he had been able to pull it off so far. And he was very glad that he knew so many good liars. Like Dumbledore. Harry, he said softly, I cannot even begin to express my regret. It didn't even occur to me that things were not as they seemed. I confess that I was swept away. Harry could see Fudge nodding like a sycophant after every 2 words, and would have had to work hard to suppress his grin had he not been so exhausted by the fact that the prophecy hinted at a terrible power. But, and I think that I speak for all of us, after what I have just witnessed, I think we can assume that the terrible power might actually be a good thing. If Hermione finds a way for me to survive, Harry thought. So now I'm all right? Harry asked harshly. He swayed on his feet and only hoped that no one had noticed. He looked over the crowd. Where are Ginny, Ron, and Hermione? As if Harry's thoughts had summoned them, Ginny and Ron appeared and shoved their way through the crowd. Hermione was a few steps behind them. There were more gasps and cries of shock. Take a good look, Dumbledore, Harry said. It's been 4 teenagers and Mad-Eye against Voldemort. For an entire year. You could have come forward, Dumbledore pointed out. I would have been arrested on sight, Harry countered. He put his hand on Ginny's shoulder when she reached his side. He did this to assure himself that she was in one piece, and also to help him stay upright. She was very pale. No one would have bothered to listen to me. And don't try to deny it. Now, Harry, Fudge began jovially. Certainly we would have believed you. Don't lie, Harry said, not even glancing at him. Sparkling darkness sought to claim him, and Harry wanted nothing more than to fall into his bed. He wondered what that spell had been that had weakened him, so was there a way to counter it? Listen, you're not still sending me to Azkaban, are you? Good. In that case, I may be able to set aside some time to talk about this last year. But first, I'm going to bed. But surely you won't go back to Hogwarts. Fudge said, there's no need for you to, stay away anymore. And I'm certain the Weasleys. Fudge glanced at Ginny and Ron. Harry almost pitied the man. He looked so completely lost. Will want to see you. Dreadfully upset, they were. No way in hell, Ron said flatly. I'm not going anywhere near my mother and father. Neither am I, said Ginny. Fudge opened his mouth, but Harry cut him off, hoping that politeness might do the trick. I'm very sorry, Minister, but I'm barely standing up. I'm leaving, but I will owl you in the next few days. Harry was pleasantly surprised when the crowd parted and let him through. He did not have the strength to apparate. He didn't think. They would have to flew to Grimmauld Place. His eyelids felt like they had weights on them. Ginny murmured a spell, and Harry felt slightly better. Well enough to walk on his own 2 feet to his bed, anyway. Oh! Hermione's eyes rounded, and she whirled around to face the minister. There are Death Eaters in the Department of Mysteries. You might want to take them to Azkaban. Grimmauld Place, Harry whispered. He had the impression of stunned and awed faces before he whirled through green flames to the basement kitchen of his godfather's family home. He stumbled out of the hearth and landed on his knees. Mrs. Weasley, who had been sitting at the table, obviously waiting for them, made a sudden movement as if to help, but stopped herself. Ginny, Ron, and Hermione appeared in short order. Where's Percy? Ron asked. Mrs. Weasley's eyes were wide. He hasn't come yet. I don't think he knows. That's impossible, Ginny said. Dumbledore sent him a feather from Foxtail. He knew that he was to come immediately after that. Ron did not waste any time, but jumped back into the hearth, shouted Percy's address, and vanished from sight. Ginny immediately followed. Mrs. Weasley did not even hesitate, and then she, too, had gone. Harry flung himself into an empty chair. His brain felt several sizes too big, and he had that horrible feeling in the back of his throat as if he were about to vomit. He did not know whether this was from worry or from the curse. "Harry, you don't look well," Hermione said. "I'm not," Harry snapped. "I'm worried about Percy." "I meant physically," Hermione said coolly. "There's no need to snap at me." "Sorry," Harry muttered. He really was, but he could not muster the energy to give an apology that sounded sincere. His stomach rolled, and he was beginning to think that he might actually vomit when Ginny and Mrs. Weasley tumbled out of the fireplace, seconds apart. Ginny's face was bloodless. "He isn't there," she said. "And there's a dead Death Eater, Travers, outside the wards." Harry gaped at her. "But how the... He wasn't even inside." "No," Ginny said. "I assume Percy went out to meet him. We would have known if a Death Eater had tried to get in. The blood wards, you know. But Percy isn't anywhere near. I think there was another Death Eater. Why would he leave the house? Why?" Blood pounded through his brain. How could Percy have been so stupid? He knew it was risky. He had promised not to do anything heroic. He had known how important it was that he stay inside the house and let the wards protect him. It was one thing to attack and fight if the Death Eater had infiltrated his house, though Percy had strict orders to apparate away, but Percy had actually left the house. Ron stepped out of the hearth. His face was bright red with fury and fear. The Git left the house. Mrs. Weasley sat down at the table, placed her head in her hands, and began to cry. Ginny hesitated for a long moment, then walked over to her mother and laid her hand on her shoulder. "It'll be all right, Mum," Ginny said quietly. She did not sound sure of it at all. "It won't be all right," Mrs. Weasley cried. "I've lost you. I've lost Ron. And now P.P. Percy might be dead." Ginny took a deep breath, and Harry watched her forgive her mother. His insides twisted up in knots. He wished it could be that easy or even possible for him. "You haven't lost me, Mom." "I don't think I have lost you," Mrs. Weasley said. "You don't." Just then, there was a slight diversion in the form of Percy apparating into the room. Percy's eyes were wild behind his horn-rimmed glasses. Harry felt a rush of relief the instant before the older boy rushed him, gripped Harry's robes, and fairly lifted him off his feet. "Sub ars vu turo. Sub ars vu turo. Balabuls. Ubble memel." He laughed loudly. "I'm too tired for this," Harry thought glumly. "Lickle Tupiter. Lenimeron. Did something happen to his mind?" Ron asked, horrified. Mrs. Weasley sobbed. Percy shook his head furiously, though Harry suspected that he had lost his mind. Percy held on even tighter, and then began searching the pockets of his robes with one hand. He pulled out a scrap of parchment and a quill, wrote something furiously, and shoved it under Harry's nose. The letters were jumbled together, backward, and did not form any coherent words. Right? Harry disentangled himself from Percy's grasp. Percy shoved the useless note into Harry's pocket. "Someone get Snape over here, or Dumbledore. I'm going to bed. When you figure out just what the hell is going on, you can wake me up. I'm glad you're alive, Perce." He made it about 3 feet in the direction of his room before the floor rushed up to meet him, and everything went black.
Good day, Harry Potter fans. We've got a new chapter for Backward with Purpose, Part 1, Always and Always, by Dead Woodpecker. We are at Chapter 33, Like Drawing in a Mirror.
Chapter 33, Like Drawing in a Mirror. Chapter text: Harry Potter Vindicated. Duels WHO. By Gardenian Alley. Dozens and dozens of eyewitness accounts describe the harrowing event that took place in the atrium of the Ministry of Magic. Harry Potter and he who must not be named dueled each other in a display of power not often seen. "It was like watching 2 giants," said Mary Plum of the Department of International Magical Cooperation. "I've never been more terrified in my life. But yes, it was a bit exhilarating too." See Great Duelists in History, page 2. Albus Dumbledore, who had been there in a meeting with Arthur Weasley, also witnessed the event, though he took a more somber and regretful tone. "It is a great tragedy that we, the wizarding world, turned our back on Harry Potter and those faithful to him. We have forced him, Ginevra Weasley, Ronald Weasley, and Hermione Granger to shoulder an impossible burden. The Daily Prophet would like to say that it could not agree more. We would like to issue full apologies to Harry Potter and the others. See, who's to blame for blaming Harry Potter? Page 3. We were wrong about many things, including the prophecy. Harry Potter arrived at the Ministry tonight in order to stop you-know-who and his crowd of Death Eaters from obtaining it. After who must not be named left the Ministry, after coming off the worst in the duel, the Aurors were dispatched to the Department of Mysteries, where they found 12 incarcerated Death Eaters. Several of them were the escapees from Azkaban, including Bellatrix Lestrange, though perhaps the most prominent was Lucius Malfoy. See, Ministry Moneyman's secret worshipper of evil, page 8. It is also believed that the disappearances and deaths over the last year should be attributed to you-know-who rather than Harry Potter, perhaps the most tragic of these being the murders of Xenophilius Lovegood and Augusta Longbottom. Two lone voices of support were cruelly silenced. It is believed that several disappearances and deaths, such as Dolores Umbridge, Simon Mountney, Jack Butler, Ollivander, Aggie Lafferty, for a full listing, see page 7, were due to refusal to serve you-know-who. The Daily Prophet would like to caution everyone to be especially wary. Harry awoke slowly, wondering why his head and body felt so funny. It tingled, and he felt rather weak, as if he had recovered from the flu. Have I been sick? Harry was confused and muddled, and he did not quite know where he was. He was lying in a bed, and judging by the light coming from the windows, it was the middle of the afternoon. A bustling sound caught Harry's attention, and he shifted his head slightly to see who it was. "Molly," Harry said with great relief. "Thank Merlin you're here. Have I been sick? Where's everyone?" He stumbled up out of bed and threw his arms around her. He had been having the worst nightmare, but as soon as he had seen her familiar, loving face, all the lingering fear slipped away. He couldn't help but grin, weak though he was. "Is everyone else here too?" Molly froze, and an expression that Harry did not understand crossed her face. The smile slipped from his face and turned into a frown. Why was she so obviously uncomfortable? What was? The memories returned to Harry with a vengeance, and it was as though the room had been plunged into darkness. This was not his Molly. It had not been a dream, and Harry felt tricked and cheated. "Would you please get Ginny, Mrs. Weasley?" Harry murmured and took a large step backward. "You can call me Molly." "No, I can't," Harry said. "Molly is dead. She's been dead and buried for more than a decade." He felt angry and desperately uncomfortable. Why was she even in here? For a moment he had thought that the last 12 years had been a terrible dream. His stomach rolled and his face flushed. She looked very hurt, and Harry did not want to have to see that, so he lay back down. She deserves it, Harry thought sourly. It seemed like forever before he heard her leave, but it only took a few moments before Harry realized that he did not want to sit in bed and wait. He swung his legs over the side and walked on shaking legs. "Just how long have I been sick anyway?" Out the door. He immediately heard Snape's voice, low and urgent. Harry managed the stairs well enough, though he had to push himself off the wall. He was just about to enter the sitting room when Ginny came rushing out and ran smack into him. He swayed dangerously and propped himself up on the wall. "Harry," she said, "you're finally awake. You shouldn't be out of bed, though." "How long?" Harry asked. "Over 2 weeks," Ginny replied. Harry's jaw dropped. He was about to say something along the lines of, "What the hell?" when Percy poked his head out. "Harry, you're all right. Are you?" Harry asked. "You're not, completely insane anymore?" "He recovered the next day," Ginny murmured. "But he doesn't remember anything that happened." Harry groaned. "Not again. I'm sick of memory charms, Ginny. I really am. I think we ought to lobby for them to become unforgivables." "It wasn't a charm, apparently," Percy said. "It was Forget for Now potion." "That doesn't cause insanity," Harry pointed out. Once, a long time ago in Harry's first 4th year, the twins had given Forget for Now potion to Minerva McGonagall in order to get their entire class out of a particularly vicious test. It had not worked, as the twins had apparently not been paying attention to Snape when he said that it took hours to go into effect, but the 3rd years had had a week without homework. "No," Ginny said. "That was a separate jinx. We think whoever did it wanted to be certain that Percy could not tell anyone something before the potion kicked in. Harry did not even bother asking who. It seemed useless to him to even try to find this person. Look at how many people remained cloaked in secrecy. The author to the mysterious article, the person who had stolen Harry's cloak, and possibly cast the other Patronus, the two people who had forced Rookwood into the unbreakable vow, the benevolent presence in the ministry. Any way to counter it? Harry asked flatly. He already knew the answer. Not without the trigger, Percy said. If the person decides never to use it, I'll always have the blank spot in my memory. Do you have any idea why you'd leave your house? Harry asked. I can't think of a reason, no, Percy said. His brow was furrowed with thought. Believe me, Harry, I have thought about this since I woke up and Ron explained to me what had happened. I wish I could provide further clarification, but I knew very well that I was not to leave the house until Fawkes sent his message. He couldn't have been hit with the Imperius curse, could he? Harry frowned. He couldn't have been, not through those wards. I wonder if you know who used similar bait for me, as he did with you, Percy said. It is possible that if a Death Eater tortured someone on the street in front of my window, I would have been inspired to leave. It doesn't make sense, though, Harry said. Voldemort had already lured me to the ministry. He used false images. He didn't need you. Not really. Harry, the body outside of Percy's house had been dead for over a day before we found it, Ginny said. And yes, that means Percy was likely missing for that time. And no, we have no idea where he went after he killed the Death Eater, or who met him, or anything really. My head hurts, Harry said. Ginny gripped his arm tightly and led him into the sitting room. Everyone had gone quiet. Glad to see you up, mate, Ron said. Neville, sitting beside him, Harry realized with a jolt that he had likely slept through the rest of the school term, nodded. Luna hummed, twirled a strand of dirty blonde hair, and stared at him. At moments like these, Harry could not imagine her using that rather vicious spell to kill Umbridge. All of the Weasleys were also in the room, along with Fleur Delacour, Remus, Tonks, Sirius, and Snape. Harry wondered vaguely where Dumbledore and Moody were. Fred and George slipped off the couch and onto the floor, and Harry and Ginny took their seats. There was a loud chorus of "Thank Merlin." It's about time. Don't ever do that again. Anything happen while I was sleeping? Harry asked. Everyone exchanged darkly significant looks. Can I take that as a yes? Harry, Voldemort killed the Dursleys, Ginny said gently. Harry gaped at her. The Dursleys are dead? He honestly and truly did not have any idea how he felt about this. Mostly he felt the same as when he heard that Voldemort killed others. Regret and rage. It was spiced a little with the knowledge that the last remaining link to Harry's mother, besides himself, had gone from the earth. He should have expected this. Really, he ought to have spared them a thought, but they had not crossed his mind since he had left them the summer before his 4th year. He wondered if he would grieve for them, and thought that he probably wouldn't. No more than any other death, at least. No one knows, Potter, Snape said. The Dark Lord told me in confidence. It would be unwise to publicize this. Harry's lips tightened. And what else has Voldemort been up to while I've been asleep? He continues to subvert the ministry, Snape said. The number of those under his command is vast. He is, as of now, working to bring it down and take control. He has servants in every department of the ministry, except for the misuse of Muggle Artifact Department, I believe. As neither I nor Argus Perkins follows you-know-who, we can be sure of that, Arthur said. He wouldn't want it anyway, Ron said. When he takes over the ministry, he'll likely start a department devoted to slaughtering Muggles. That day might come sooner than last time, Snape said. We know that Dumbledore has suspected that the increased turmoil and the general stupidity of the wizarding world would lead to this. This is what we wanted, Harry murmured. The faster he takes control, the sooner we can bring him down. I don't like that he has larger numbers, though. We'll just have to take more of his followers out, Moody growled. He did not look as though he were averse to this idea. Ambush him like we've been doing, but all the time. Some of them are under the Imperius curse, Harry said. We don't have the kind of resources to engage in that kind of warfare without killing innocents. Kingsley and Tonks can't trail every single Death Eater, and we can't have the Ministry do it. because there are too many spies. And Snape might be revealed. That would be far too dangerous, I think. You didn't seem so concerned when it was Percy's arse on the line, Charlie muttered. Harry was immediately dancing on the ragged edge of rage. He immediately began practicing a clemency. This did not help. How dare he? Harry had done everything he could to keep Percy safe. They all had. Percy had known the danger, had volunteered for it. He kept attempting to close his mind, but the control kept slipping away. "Shut the hell up, Charlie," said Ron. Harry would never. "I just find it a little odd," Charlie interrupted Ginny loudly. "I find it a little odd that it just had to be Percy. Why not Sirius or Remus, for the love of Merlin?" "Charlie," Percy said quietly, "I didn't have a problem with. You were in danger, Perce," Charlie said. "You could have died. That nutter who hexed you could have just as easily killed you." "Charlie, we're all in danger," Ron said. Harry clenched and unclenched his right fist. "This is war." "I know that," Charlie snapped. "I'm not stupid," which is why I find it funny that Harry here chose a Weasley to use as bait for effing you-know-who. It isn't a secret that he hates us. Maybe he thought the Weasleys needed to be punished for not choosing, for not trusting, and Percy would be a pretty good sacrifice. Harry had raised his wand and blasted Charlie backward before the word sacrifice had left the other wizard's mouth. Hot blood pounded through his veins. His thoughts weren't even coherent. "How dare! I would never sacrifice Percy. Fuck him." "Protego!" Sirius shouted, and the shield charm erupted between Charlie, who had staggered to his feet and was now pointing his own wand at Harry, and Harry. Harry was dimly aware that people were talking loudly. He felt a hand clamp around his elbow. It was too large to be Ginny's hand, and he made to shove it off when he realized it was Snape who was now steering him out of the room. Sirius followed, but he must have told everyone else to stay back, because Harry found himself alone in the kitchen with Snape and Sirius. "Let's go to Grimmauld Place," Sirius said. "We'll have more privacy, and I wouldn't say no to a glass of fire whiskey." "You really ought to take that elfin hand, Black," Snape said. There was the familiar squeezing sensation, and Harry found himself in Creature's domain. "Creature knows that he owns me," Sirius said cheerfully. "But thank for the advice, Snivellis." Snape scowled. Creature appeared out of nowhere. "Oh, Master Harry, feeling better? Can Creature get you anything?" Harry sat there, numb, while Creature bustled around. "I wasn't going to kill him, if that's what you think," Harry said heavily. He stared at the glass of amber liquid, but did not drink. His limbs still felt weak from his cursed illness, and he did not want to know what kind of effect the alcohol would have on him. He looked around the room and noticed for the first time that Grimmauld Place had been cleaned out of the remaining gloom. He found himself sort of wishing that he could hide in one of the long, flickering shadows that had been so much a part of the Grimmauld Place he used to know. "We know you wouldn't have killed him," Sirius said. "And, just so we're clear, I am fully on your side. And not just because I'm your godfather, although I found it highly offensive that they would kick a 13-year-old out of their home. And I have found them similarly annoying," Snape added. Harry gaped between the two of them. "Did you actually plan to have this conversation? Is this a discussion?" "It is," Sirius confirmed. "You're very bitter, Harry." Harry slumped forward in his chair, wishing he could escape. Not for the first time, he wondered when the world had turned upside down. Grimmauld Place was far more of a home to him than the Burrow. He was actively hoping for the swift takeover by Voldemort of the Ministry. He had just cursed Charlie Weasley and wished to do so again. And Severus Snape and Sirius Black had agreed on something. "I am," Harry said. "I can't seem to stop it." "The funny thing about bitterness," Sirius said, "is that it can be a choice." "I agree," said Snape. Harry stared at them. Did they know how ironic it was that these words came from the two of them? Sirius, who had been so bitter that he had unwittingly led to his own death. Or Snape, whose bravery had only been revealed after the fact, because his hatred of Harry had shrouded his loyalties? He did not say this, but the other men seemed to guess his thoughts. "I know what you're thinking, Harry," said Sirius. "Potter." Snape toyed with his glass and scowled. "I did not like the man I saw in your memories." "Neither did I," Sirius said. Harry's sense of the surreal grew steadier by the minute. "I was bitter, resentful. I was drinking too much. And we ultimately died because of that bitterness, Snape said. Harry thought it very ironic that Snape's tone practically dripped with bitterness. Harry gritted his teeth, and the rational part of his brain told him that he had to talk to them for his own sanity. Believe me, I realize the Weasleys treated you poorly. That isn't it, Harry said. Well, not completely. It's difficult to explain. I'm bitter because it's too late. It's too late to build any sort of relationship with them. It won't happen. It used to mean the world to me. Nothing. No one could replace my mom and dad, but Molly and Arthur. They treated me like another son. And Bill and Charlie and the others were like my brothers. Are you sure it's too late, Harry? Sirius asked. You have your whole life. Except that I don't, Harry said. He blinked rapidly, and he felt sick to his stomach. He had not wanted to tell Sirius this, but Harry felt like this was strangling him, and it had been since the Weasleys had walked into Grimmauld Place. Sirius, the day that, shit, I'm not going to survive this, I don't think. Of course you're going to survive, Sirius said bracingly. You've got all of us helping you, don't you? Voldemort isn't going to kill you. You don't understand, Harry said. The only way that Voldemort can be defeated is if I die. He has to kill me. Otherwise he won't die. Sirius, I'm a Horcrux. Sirius blanched. What, last time, how did you? He whispered. I had 3 items called the Deathly Hallows, Harry said. It made me Master of Death when Voldemort used the killing curse on me. Again, it didn't work properly because I was protected. But one of the Hallows is destroyed. It also was a Horcrux, and my dad's cloak has gone missing, and the Elder Wand, Dumbledore has that, and I have no intention of taking it away from him. So, I've been thinking about the terrible power, Harry said. And I think it's terrible because I've got no chance of surviving. Hermione's looking for ways, but I don't think. Are you absolutely certain of this? Snape asked. As certain as I can be of anything, Harry said. There isn't any other way at all, said Snape. I'll keep looking, I promised Ginny, but I don't think so, Harry said. So, I know it's selfish and stupid, but I wish that the real Weasleys could be here. I really wish that I could have died for them. I'm going to do it regardless. I'm not a coward, and I know what I got to do, but his voice trailed away. It would just be a lot easier. It would feel less terrible. They don't really like me. Not really. They were sort of forced into it. Harry, Sirius' lips were white. I want you to promise me something. You had better do everything in your power to survive this. Do you understand me? I don't care if you've got 300 Horcruxes inside you. You'd better make every effort to get rid of it without dying. All right, Harry said. I already promised Ginny, but promise again, Sirius ordered. The morning of Harry's 16th birthday had a wonderful start. Ginny woke him up and gave him his first gift. With the business of the last month, they had not had much time for slow, easy lovemaking. But they made time, and Harry hummed afterward as he showered and readied himself for the rest of the day. He blindly reached for robes and pulled them on. He wondered if Sirius would insist on searching for more and more methods of surviving the killing curse. His godfather had been quite fiendish about it. Actually, Hermione had likewise been galvanized into action, though she remained ignorant of the fact that Harry was a Horcrux. Harry, Ginny asked, do you happen to have a quill on you? Harry slipped his hands into his pockets to check, but all he found was a scrap of parchment. He was about to toss it and go hunt down a quill for Ginny, when he remembered that this must have been the parchment Percy had written on after he had been jinxed. Maybe I'll be able to decipher it, Harry thought, though he did not really believe it. He unfolded it, and was not surprised to find that it was still written in indecipherable symbols. He flipped it over, ready to take a quick look just to make sure before he tossed it in the bin, and was surprised to find small, tight writing. He squinted at it. Hey, Ginny, he said. He held the note out to her. Can you read this? Too small. Ginny looked at it. Try enlarging it. Harry did so and quickly read it. Then he read it again. To the ones who used the tears and those who chose to believe. You see, one gets confused with time when it is like that. All one's tenses get muddled, for one thing. If you know what is going to happen to people and not what has happened to them, it makes it difficult to prevent it happening if you don't want it to have happened, if you see what I mean. Like drawing in a mirror. Here, Ginny, Harry said. He held it out to her again. Someone is effing with our heads again. A half an hour later, everyone who knew about the time travel, except Snape, was congregated around the table in the basement kitchen of Grimmauld Place. Creature had outdone himself in the preparations for Harry's birthday breakfast, but Harry could not concentrate on the food. He tapped his foot impatiently, wondering where Snape was and why he was 2 minutes late. No sooner had the sour-faced potions master appeared than Harry leapt to his feet. "Giving a toast, mate?" Ron smirked. "It is the Chosen One's birthday, after all." "Shut up, Ron," Harry said distractedly. "We received a message from someone. I think it's the person from the Department of Mysteries, the one who did the shield charm, Kingsley. But it might not be." "A message?" Dumbledore asked. "How was it received?" Harry waved the scrap of parchment. "I found it in my pocket. Remember how Percy tried to write me a note? I'd completely forgotten about it. I found it today, and I found writing on the back. It was addressed to us, all of us." Ginny read out loud. No sooner had she done so than Hermione shrieked, clapped her hand over her mouth, and used the flue to get back to Godric's Hollow. Harry watched this, both astonished and mildly amused. If he hadn't heard her distinctly shout the address of Sirius' home, he would have thought that she'd run off to do research in the library at Hogwarts. He and Ron exchanged exasperated glances. Dumbledore reached out for the message, and Harry handed it to him. The older man's brow was furrowed with concentration and puzzlement. "This line is somewhat familiar. I think I've read it before, but where?" "From a Muggle book called The Once and Future King," Hermione said. Harry jolted. He had not seen her return. She slammed a thick book down on the table. Harry recognized it immediately, Memories Unbound. That exact quote, she flipped pages until she came to a blank page with only a few words on it, is right here. It introduces the time travel section. "Honestly, Ron, you act as though you've never even seen this book before. Don't tell me you haven't read it." "I flipped through it," Ron said defensively. "But mostly I looked at the Tears of Merlin stuff." Hermione's lips twitched. "By flipping through it, do you mean ignoring everything else but what you need?" "Now is not the time for foreplay," Harry said sternly. He grinned when Fred choked on his pumpkin juice. "Albus, what do you think this means? Is it from our mysterious friend at the Ministry? And what did he do with Percy?" Dumbledore was silent for long moments. "I think it is a safe guess. We suspect that someone else knows about the time travel. It is also possible that they know the method, though I can't think how." "What if someone else is traveling time?" Fred asked. "Doesn't that make more sense? I mean, how could someone just guess that?" But if they already knew, Harry felt the immediate urge to get up and beat his head against the wall. If there was, indeed, another time traveler, what on earth could they possibly be doing? What were they trying to manipulate? The scene in the Ministry implied that if someone was using time to change things, then they were trying to help Harry. But why weren't they trying to do more to help? He glared at the twins. "If there is another one of us, I think it's one of you," he said grimly. Fred and George looked astonished. "Who else would try to fuck with our heads like this?" Ginny snorted. As one, they all turned to Dumbledore, who had taken off his glasses and was now pressing his fingertips to his forehead. The silence was so thick that Harry could hear Creature scurrying around upstairs. He felt as though there ought to have been some sort of ominous sign, like a sudden thunderclap or a piercing siren. "I do not know why everyone expects me to have the answers," Dumbledore said. "I assure you that I am quite as mystified as you." "It's because you're Albus Dumbledore," Ron said, "and all we have to do is sit back and wait for you to figure it out." Dumbledore stood and began to pace around the kitchen. Harry watched him. Occasionally he would mutter to himself, though Harry could not quite hear the words. At one point, he flipped through every page of Memories Unbound. He set it back down again without a word. "I do wonder," he said finally, "how many copies of that book there are. It is quite extraordinary." "We think so," Ginny said, indicating the three of them. Dumbledore did not reply, but continued to pace back and forth. Harry sipped his tea, his own thoughts racing. Every time he had the solution, it slipped away, and he felt even more confused than before. He understood the fact that the shield charm had saved Harry, but there had been other instances when Harry could have used a helping hand. And why the deal with Percy? "I believe," Dumbledore broke the long silence. I believe that it is almost certain that it is one of us here in this room. Harry, you do not intend to tell anyone else, correct? We are the only ones. Correct, Harry nodded. He wiped a hand over his face. But why has this person not shown himself? Maybe we've got to choose, Charlie said. His voice was heavy with sarcasm. But if it turns out that you know who is secretly working toward his own downfall, and we just got to trust him, I'm going to pack up and move to Chile. This is insane. Harry surprised everyone, including himself, by barking out a short laugh. Though he had apologized, stiffly, though it was the best he could do, to Charlie, their interactions had been even frostier than usual since Harry had hexed him. Let's go tell him right now, Ron said. Then we'll know everything. He's been manipulating all of us into thinking he's an evil git. But really he's saving the world from this even more evil git. Luna laughed so hard and for so long that Kingsley and Tonks, who had not had the opportunity to spend much time with her, began to look as though they wanted to give her a calming draft. Don't be silly, Lancelot, Luna said. She beamed around at them, and Harry had the sudden feeling that she knew better than any of the rest of them what was going on. It's not Voldemort, it's Merlin.